All right, so I've just finished evaluating the participants today morning at the end of a 60-hour course that we just finished over the Microservices Architecture Course, which I just finished, I think last weekend, and it was a 1 month course, 60 hours in over a period of whole month, about 3 hours every day. And I finished it last week, and today was the evaluation of one half of the participants. There were 25 participants there, and this is one of the slides from the sessions, just one of them. Okay, so the areas, the topics that were covered during this 4 weeks. We started from a brief history of the internet and the web, and how basically the internet emerged, and how was the software industry built around, what were the deployment patterns, what sort of software was built, how collaboration used to happen. And then we take this thing forward and we see how it evolved by the early 90s and the mid 90s, and how the web emerged as a primary deployment platform for the for the whole world. Okay, so web is discussed as a primarily a deployment sort of platform where software reaches the end customer. Okay, software reaches the end customer who is consuming it, and from there we take it forward and we see what did the original web look like. Okay, and what sort of functionalities, what sort of websites, what sort of applications you could build with the the original web stack. Okay, early 90s, 1991, 1992. So we start with HTML, the bare bones HTML, the Apache server, and we see how to build static websites. Very quickly we go over through that evolution, and then we introduce that in 1995 Java came into the picture, and then you have more interactive websites. You had a fully functional backend and the 3-tier architecture with the front end, backend, and the the database. And we saw how that actually led to the boom, which you now know as the dot-com boom in the late 90s and the early 20s. A lot of Indian companies, in fact, I'm targeting this whole video to the rest of the world. I mean, the whole of the world, in fact. But because I'm an Indian and I'm working in the Indian market primarily, so many of the examples that I share in this would be from an Indian perspective. So a lot of companies came up in this dot-com boom, where you had the Shadi.com, the India Mart, and so many. Make My Trip also came up in the same era. And from there you saw in the early 2000s, many of these companies simply died out. I personally know some of the founders who have spent their entire lives to this entire thing of building startups and all, and they saw one sort of crash in the early 2000s, and then they gathered or regrouped and then launched another sort of. That this dot-com crash that happened in the early 2000s, it led to a lot of sort of a deeper conversation within the software industry, like what's wrong, are we too quick to to move on, whether our technology sphere is ready or not yet, and are we doing great on this, and are we really ready to scale up to the level that we are targeting. Okay, and a lot of answers came from that deeper conversation within the industry, and a lot of companies and a lot of people that you now know as thought leaders in the software industry emerged in the early 2000s. ThoughtWorks, for example, is a company that is and a lot of people who work in ThoughtWorks emerged as the thought leaders in the software industry, and they kind of saw what needs to be changed, and then those changes started happening gradually. Many of these changes were led by companies and organizations which were very well funded. Okay, one of the examples of this is Amazon. It started as a book distribution company, online book sales company, and then as they move forward, they, after this dot-com crash, they ended up with a lot of hardware. Okay, they ended up with a lot of hardware that they didn't really know what to do with it, because they clearly overbought a lot of stuff. And then they moved forward and they thought, why don't we open up it to the rest of the world? Because after the crash, a lot of companies could not afford such huge amounts of hardware. So that is how your cloud was born. Okay, and Amazon S3 was the first cloud service platform as a service launched in the March of 2006. So from there, the entire software industry started converging upon this idea of service-oriented architecture, where software was not now delivered as a CD or a floppy disk, but rather as small chunks of functionality which you can pick and choose, and also pay on demand. You can pay on demand. Of course, in 2006, that was still a very early idea. And I was working with the Ministry of Defense of India back then as a scientist. And I still remember, although I had nothing to do with the service-oriented architecture back then, I was working on a very standalone kind of application for simulation of electronic warfare systems. But then all around me, I heard people and other engineers talking about service-oriented architecture. Of course, there was not a lot of clarity. Everybody was just, trying to talk about it. But over the period of time, the next 7 to 8 years, by 2012 and 14, a lot of tools and technologies emerged that actually helped the software industry to capitalize on this idea, and really something could be done about it rather than just talking about it. SOA. And many of these things which you now know by the name of many of these technologies like Docker, Kubernetes, and these such things like serverless, DevOps, DevSecOps, all these ideas started emerging in the mid 2010, somewhere after 2014, and now they are quite matured, and that's why we are seeing a rush by a lot of major technology companies which have been working on legacy projects. They're trying to migrate their solutions to this new way of building software, which is the microservices based kind of thing. It's coming from the same thing, SOA, service oriented architecture. Microservices is broadly the same idea, but with the new generation coming in, the word microservices has actually picked up quite a bit. All right, so this is what we delivered in about 60 hours to a renowned service company in India. Okay, a huge service company. I'm not going to name it. And today was the evaluation. I evaluated around 12 people today, and what I realized is that a lot of software still in the industry is still being built with the older methodologies like maybe agile or Scrum, and some organizations are still going with the waterfall kind of a thing. So it all depends on the kind of domain you are in, kind of industry you are in, how much competition you are facing, and how important is it or how critical is it for you right now to migrate to this new architecture. And I realized that a lot of participants were really inspired, and really they took on this new idea, this new the way of doing things with quite a gusto. Okay. Major challenge that is faced by anyone who is trying to enter into this field of microservices architecture is the huge and vast amount of information, the diverse kind of things, so many tools and technologies, and you don't know where to start from, and it's kind of seems endless in the beginning. Even if you just take a look at this diagram, which may not be even 10% of what we have discussed, and you will realize the complexity. So many terms are mentioned here, so many things are mentioned here. Okay, and if you take a look at it, it's quite overwhelming for anyone. It is just one of the days, okay, 1 or 2 days of explanation that happened here. So it's pretty kind of spread out if you talk in terms of the stack and the ideas and the concepts. Once you have covered it, then fine, it looks pretty doable. But once you're entering into this field, it's pretty overwhelming. Okay, it is pretty overwhelming. So that is what I understood through when I was evaluating all these people, that the challenge that they are facing initially is to get a hold of all these diverse technologies and to get a bigger picture in their heads, and we really help them do that, and they're really grateful for that. And they are also as we discussed with them, and they're all also agreeing to the fact that it will take up to 6 months to 1 year to actually with their own hands and their own minds, if they are going to design a solution, to actually implement and internalize all of these things. It's going to take some time. All right. So basically, if any of you out there, and if your organization especially, if you want to migrate to the microservices architecture, be prepared to actually devote a lot of time for the evaluation of the various technology stacks that are available. Of the architecture per se is not that difficult to internalize once there is somebody who can guide you, or maybe you yourself are motivated enough to do it on your own. So it's not really difficult to internalize the architecture, but the more difficult thing is to bring your own setup on your own development, in your own development environment, in your own staging environment, in your own production environment, to get your own setup ready, and then use it to actually develop and test and deploy your application. So to get the setup ready, and you have to deal with so many tools and technologies, and you have to set everything up, and all of that has to work together. So that will take a lot of time and energy on your part. Do not underestimate that thing, but it will be quite a unique experience, and you will realize that yes, building software and delivering value to your end customer, to your the consumer, is an enjoyable process now. And this, in fact, we are living in a day and age where people who have joined the software industry 3 or 4 years ago, 5 years ago, or 6 years ago are living a very these are amazing times, because I am from a generation where we used to read books for any technology, okay, and internet was slow. We did not have a lot of online tools to actually practice stuff or maybe try out stuff. Things were pretty slow actually, and it was harder to implement, it was harder to collaborate, the sharing of ideas, and more specifically the AI coding assistants have really made life easier for the software developers these days. I'm not saying just give a problem and copy the code and do it. So there's still ingenuity required. You will write your own code, you'll create your own design, but let's say everything and you're missing a few pieces. So those few pieces can be provided to you by the AI coding assistant. So that is how the industry has changed a lot, I would say, over the past 4 or 5 years. And we have gone mostly online, and online collaboration, work from home, remote work. All of this has really been accepted as kind of a de facto standard, which is really good. I know people sometimes complain these days about layoffs and companies not hiring anymore, not paying enough. But trust me, this is only going to discourage the people who are into this field only for the money. The real creators, the people who consider themselves hackers or creators or developers, who want to create value with their own hearts and minds and fingers, with their own hands. I don't think there was ever a better time to be a software developer or a creator than this. Okay, so if the companies are not paying you well, I would suggest that you start your own gig on the side. Pick up projects, try to automate your own, wherever you are, whichever neighborhood you're living in. Offer some services, create some solutions for the local community, for the local businesses, for your local, in your city, basically. Try to set up your own gig or something. And it's going to really pay you in the long run. It may not pay you to become a sort of an employee in a large multinational corporation, but it's definitely going to pay you if you apply all of these things and start something that serves a community or a business environment where you are situated or where you exist. All right, so this was just a small video to tell you that the world is actually moving towards distributed architecture for software development, the collaborative sort of environment, the way of building software. So stay tuned to the channel. If you like what you see here, if you would like to see more of it, then please go ahead and like the video and share it amongst your friends. And do not forget to subscribe the channel, because here you're gonna see a lot more about technology, all sorts of technology, not just the web apps, but almost everything, IoT, artificial intelligence, and more importantly, how to apply it. So it's going to be from a very application perspective. So how do you apply these technologies? Very few AI specialists or AI engineers are in this world who are actually working in companies like ChatGPT and Microsoft and Google, where they are building AI engines. Most of us have to learn to work with these AI assistants. So the application part is more important. There are very few people who are building such core tools, but there are a lot more people who are going to take those tools and actually solve real life problems. So if you want to have that perspective, if you want to understand the technology around you and how it is changing, even if you're from a non-tech background, even if you're a doctor, even if you're a manager, even if you're a management guy or a sales guy or a sales background, this is going to help you definitely. Okay, the videos that we're going to put here in Lone Developer Hackerspace, they're going to give you a very, very rich and wholesome view of the technology world around you. So don't miss it. Do subscribe the channel and do keep posted about it. With this, I end this particular video, but you'll see much more interesting here, coming onto this through this channel.